You might think the debate it just means a bunch of high school kids arguing with each other. And you are right. But there is an organized structure to every debate round. Each of the two teams has an equal opportunity to construct their arguments, cross-examine the opposing team, be cross-examined by the opposing team, and offer rebuttals to the opposing team's arguments. Before we talk about the order of speeches, let's take a moment to look at the 4 speaking roles in a debate round. As you already know, a debate is made up of an affirmative team, a negative team, and at least one judge. We'll talk about the role of the judge in the other videos, so let's just stay focused on the 2 debate teams. The affirmative team is made up of 2 debate students from one school, and the negative team is made up of 2 debate students from another school. The affirmative team is made up of the first affirmative speaker and the second affirmative speaker. The negative team is made up of the first negative speaker and the second negative speaker. In the debate world, we call these positions the 1A, 2A, 1N, and 2N. The first type of speech in a debate round is called a constructive. As you can guess, the purpose of a constructive is to construct your arguments. Constructing arguments gives you the chance to lay out all the reasons and provide all the evidence to explain your position. You might have 5 or 6 different arguments to discuss during your constructive, and you'll take about 1 to 2 minutes to discuss each one. Each constructive is 8 minutes long, and all 4 debaters get to give 1 constructive. The second type of speech is called a cross-examination, and they are each 3 minutes long. Each debater will conduct 1 cross-examination, and each debater will be cross-examined once. The purpose of cross-examination is to ask and answer questions. Some questions are intended to clarify, such as, "Can you tell me the author of the first piece of evidence you read?" And some questions are intended to set up future arguments, such as, "If your plan is such a good idea, why haven't we implemented it yet?" The third type of speech is called a rebuttal, and those occur near the end of the debate round. Each rebuttal is 5 minutes, and each debater gets 1 rebuttal. The purpose of a rebuttal is to compare your team's arguments to the opposing team's arguments and explain how your arguments are superior. For example, you might find yourself saying that the opposing team claims that implementing the plan will help the economy, but your arguments and your evidence have demonstrated that the cost of the plan will do much more to hurt the economy than to help it, so we should not implement the plan. It's important to remember that rebuttals are not the time to make new arguments, because it should take all 5 minutes just to compare the existing arguments made during the constructives. So those are the 3 types of speeches: the constructives, which are 8 minutes long, the cross-examinations, which are 3 minutes long and occur between constructives, and rebuttals, which are 5 minutes long and occur at the end of the debate. The first speech is the first affirmative constructive. It's 8 minutes long. Next is a cross-examination. The second negative speaker cross-examines the first affirmative speaker, while the first negative prepares his or her speech. The next speech is the first negative constructive, and it's 8 minutes long. Then, the first affirmative speaker cross-examines the first negative speaker, while the second affirmative prepares for his or her speech. The next speech is the second affirmative constructive, and it's 8 minutes long. Then, the first negative speaker cross-examines the second affirmative speaker, while the second negative prepares for his or her speech. The next speech is the second negative constructive, and it's 8 minutes long. Then, the second affirmative speaker cross-examines the second negative speaker. The next set of speeches are rebuttals. Since the affirmative team got to the first constructive, the negative team gets the first rebuttal. This creates back-to-back speeches by the negative team, and it's called the negative block. The first negative speaker delivers the first rebuttal, and it is 5 minutes long. The first affirmative speaker delivers the next rebuttal, and it is also 5 minutes long. The second negative speaker gives the next 5-minute rebuttal, and the second affirmative speaker gives the final 5-minute rebuttal. In between speeches, debaters use what is called prep time. Prep time is time when nobody is speaking and debaters are working quietly to prepare for the next speech for each team for the entire round. That may not seem like a lot, but it's important to remember 2 things. First, prep time is only counted against the team that is supposed to speak or cross-examine next. So if the second negative constructive takes 2 minutes to prepare his or her speech, that time is counted against the negative team, even though the affirmative team is working as well. The basic rule is that if we are waiting for you to speak, your team is using up its prep time. The other thing to remember is that cross-examinations don't count against your prep time. So while the second negative speaker is taking 3 minutes to cross-examine the first affirmative speaker, that's 3 free minutes that the first negative has to prepare his or her speech. That's the basic order of speeches. Before you go, you should be sure that you know the following terms: constructive, rebuttal, cross-examination, prep time, negative block, and the basic order of all the speeches in a debate round. That's all for now, debaters. Good luck.